Hello, welcome everyone to the Japanese Digital Health Market and Business Opportunities webinar hosted by the Hyogo Business and Cultural Center and Kobe Trade Information Office. We're so pleased that you're joining us today. My name is Karen Zogblack from the Port of Seattle, and I am pleased to be serving as your MC today. As the international gateway for the greater Seattle region and the state of Washington, the Port of Seattle is passionate about our international connections, whether with our seaport or our airport. And we are pleased to have a long-standing sister port relationship with the Port of Kobe, in addition to the strong sister city ties between Seattle and Kobe, and of course, the sister state relationship between Washington and Hyogo. So this seminar is just yet another way of building increased connections between the two economies of Hyogo Prefecture and Washington State. In today's seminar, we will be talking about the current trends in Japan's digital health and health tech market and the benefits of expanding your digital health tech business into Japan. Thank you to all our supporting organizations for all their help in getting over 250 people attending today's event. In terms of the program, after the keynote speech, we will be hearing about the City of Kobe's and Hyogo Prefecture's business support for companies, and then we'll begin the panel discussion. The discussion will be followed by two additional organizations introducing their business support services. And lastly, we will have time for your questions and discussion. I believe in the chat, you will be able to see a link to the program. It's on the slide there that is showing as well. And the chat will also have a link to go look at the bios of all of our wonderful speakers today. So a little bit of housekeeping. Today, we are using the Zoom platform, which I assume most of you are familiar with, maybe a little too familiar. Here in pandemic life, we're doing a lot of things virtually, but it certainly does allow us to have speakers across several different time zones and different countries today. So that's definitely a silver lining. So just to briefly review the Zoom platform functionality that we're using today, you can look to the toolbar at the bottom of your screen, and we encourage you to please type your questions for the speakers and panelists into the Q&A function. We will consolidate them and then answer them during the Q&A portion at the end of our presentations today. You are also welcome to use the chat function to make comments or chat with other attendees. But remember, if you have a question for the panelists, please type that into the Q&A function. The lineup of speakers today is amazing, so I'm sure you'll have lots of questions. In addition, last note, we will be recording this webinar today and posting it on the Kobe Trade Information Office website for future access, and the link will be mailed out to all of the attendees. So let's get started. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Ryusuke Miki. Dr. Miki is the Manager of Health Innovation in the Public Health Bureau of the City of Kobe. I used to work for the City of Kobe for 3 years back in the 1990s, so I have a fondness for all officials from the City of Kobe, Dr. Miki, and we're excited to have you here today. Just a little bit about Dr. Miki. He graduated from Kyushu University School of Medicine in 2002 and was engaged in clinical practice at core regional hospitals for over 17 years, specializing in cardiovascular, emergency, and intensive care medicine. He earned his master's degree in public health at Kyoto University Graduate School of Medicine in 2018, majoring in public health and epidemiology and minoring in clinical research methods and science for redesigning science, technology, and innovation policy. He's currently engaged in designing healthcare data infrastructure and digital health services for the City of Kobe. So it's, I'm sure, a fascinating time to be in Dr. Miki's field here during a pandemic. And with that, Dr. Miki, please, we look forward to your remarks today.
Okay, thank you very much for the nice introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. Okay, I'd like to start my presentation about the digital health in Japan. Okay, so I have three topics today. One is digital health and health tech market in Japan. And second is, I'll just do a quick overview of the medical and healthcare system in Japan. And lastly, I would like to introduce how Kobe is best fit for overseas expansions for startups. Okay, I'd like to first talk about the digital health and health tech market and how it's growing in Japan. This graph shows the market growth of digital health in Japan in next 6-7 years. This year, digital health was a 1.3 billion US dollar market on the left, right here. And then in next 5 years, it is expected to grow to 2.5 fold, which is somewhere around 2.5 to 2.7 billion dollar market. And most of them are prevention sectors, and they account for about 50 to 45% of that market in this light purple area right here. And by the way, these purple area right here is the diagnostic and therapeutics, and dark purple areas are for the rehab services. And this is this shows number of consultation to PMDA as of September of 2019. Oh, by the way, the PMDA is just like FDA in US. So the number is increasing, and as a result, on December 2018, first AI-assisted diagnostic program was approved as a medical device in Japan. And this was an endoscopy for detecting colon cancer. And next year, 2019, second medical device was approved as AI-assisted diagnostic program. And this was, I think it was, this was AI program to detect bulge called aneurysm in the brain vessel by MRA imaging. And just last year, first therapeutic app was approved, and this app assisted patient to quit smoking. So currently we have 3 PMDA approved medical devices, which belongs to digital health or health tech type of service. And what's the position of the government in this field? This is the Action Plan 2020 released by the government for promoting new healthcare and medical industry in coming years. So they've set 3 pillars. One is promoting investment in occupational, community, and individual health. And this encourages employers to manage their employees' health as cooperates management strategy. And the second pillar is establishing an environment for appropriate service provision. Today's topic would fall into this category right here. And the government is accelerating discussions about health technology assessment as well as regulations with it. And also the use of ICT, IoT, and AI and robotics in this digital health field. The last one is strengthening the innovation ecosystem. And they've set out the support office. One is Healthcare Innovation Hub, and the other one is Medical Innovation Support Office, where you could, where they would offer comprehensive support for those who wish to challenge in this area. So how about the private enterprises? I am sorry, this is all in Japanese, I just wanted to show how the Japanese pharma are collaborating with other players in the field. So on your left, this is the R&D section. These blue rectangles are Japanese farmers collaborating with other players in the field, mainly tech companies and Japanese corporates and startups. On your right, this is a digital collaboration map for digital therapeutics and therapeutic supports. And also these are Japanese farmers, and I don't think you can read these difficult Japanese terms, but you see some many overseas corporations and startups in the IT and R&D field. So this is a quick summary for the first section. As I have introduced, the market is growing rapidly to $2.5 billion in 5 years. And the government is also supporting health tech industry, and they're seeing this healthcare domain as an important area of economic growth as well. And on the private enterprise sector, many farmers are rigorously collaborating with players from the industry, expecting to see some catalytic effect from startups and tech companies. So on the second topic, I'd like to talk about the medical healthcare system in Japan. And as you all know, this is very complex. So I'll try to simplify as much as I can. Okay, let's start. So this is the features of Japan's social insurance health system. We are all covered, called universal coverage. So every citizen in Japan have health insurance. And also we have free access to every clinics and hospitals with relatively low cost. So these are good features, but since everybody is covered by social health insurance, we don't really have the choice of plans. All the plans are fairly similar, and there's not that much difference from each other, and same services and payments for providers. The next is features of Japan's medical system. Okay, it's fee-for-service type of medical care that are provided, and all the pricings are fixed. It's not like pay for performance or pay for outcome. But just because it's all fixed price, Japanese medical cost is kept relatively low, and you only have to pay 30% of the medical cost with a cap on the monthly payment as well. And as I have mentioned, we have free access to all hospitals and clinics. You can literally go to like tertiary medical center if you wanted to. And as a result of that, I think Japanese people are frequently visiting clinics and hospitals. And we have a lot of beds in Japanese hospital, and number of CT and MRI in Japan is the world #1. And we do have a very long hospital stay. And most of the hospitals and clinics are owned by private sector. So under conditions that I've just explained, what happens is for Japanese citizens, medical care is not something very special. It's always there, and they get the solution when they become ill. So in other words, it's very tough to make them pay for healthcare solutions. You need to realize this when you're coming to Japan. So it's very, very important to think about where you want to position your business in. So to your left is wellness, and to your right is medical care. So if you want to get PMDA approved medical devices, you will be positioning your business on the right-hand side on this area right here. And if you're not going for the PMDA approval, you're going to be in this area on your left. And from regulatory standpoint, if you want to do your business on this area on your right, I think the hurdle is high, but once you get into this field, once you get approved, I think you get a good chance of running steady business because it's blue ocean. Like I've said, there's only 3 digital health technology that are approved by the PMDA. But however, reimbursement pricing is set every 2 years and company don't have much of a control over it. So I think it is better to prepare for health technology assessment based on the money saved and patient outcome. And in order to do that, you need data to show that. I think the claims data and maybe EHR would be a good choice for that. But however, it's kind of hard to obtain those data and they are not readily available for use. And if you stay on this side, of course, you can enjoy freedom of doing whatever you want, but you need to actually test your product or services in a test bed and maybe make improvement or pivot to some other field. And if you stay on the wellness side, I think the competition is harsh. I think many of the tech giant companies are joining this field right here. So I think the test bed is really important for this field on the left-hand side as well. And in either case, if you stay in the self-care wellness side or the medical therapeutics side, I think you need to be careful not to cross the line of medical devices or programs. So in either way, you need to catch up with the regulations, which means it's always better to have a strong partnership with the company that have who knows about the industry very well. And I've been talking about services which are mainly delivered to patients or patient outcome. And I still think there's an area where you can deliver value for the patient indirectly. The hint is here. This is the survey taken in 2011, which is kind of old, but I think there's 2 important insights from this. So this is a request for medical institutions from citizens, and top 5 requests are listed here. Shorter waiting time, thorough explanation, appropriate referral, and opportunity for second opinion and empathy for the complaints. So the two important insights are there are unmet needs where you can solve by optimizing the delivery of healthcare, such as shorter waiting times. You know, these can be easily solved by the technology. And the second insight is there is like nothing about self-care or autonomy. So if you can provide them with a value that they've never imagined, I think there is good chance of making a business. So these are issues to be considered when you are running a business in Japan. So you need to clarify the position that you run your business in. It's either wellness or medical. And you need to be careful about the regulation and reimbursement process and health technology assessment. And in order to do that, I think the partnership and a test bed is mandatory for success. So this on this third topic, I would like to introduced Kobe, and also a data infrastructure that we developed. In 2018, we set out to establish our city as a major hub for promoting innovation in the field of healthcare. And the personal health recorder, I will just call it PHR from now on, provides a data infrastructure for such projects. And we have also established consortium from various stakeholders such as government body and private enterprise, academia, and citizens. Now over 90 organizations joined this consortium and are collaborating on various projects. And the main digital health service that the city is providing is free healthcare app. This app makes it possible to collect various behavioral data such as steps, sleep, and diet. And it provides personalized suggestions for healthy lifestyle based on their data. The PHR system helps us look for participants for various proof of concept studies, and data collected through this system can be used for academic research purposes, and it can also be linked to other health-related information the city has on file, and even to the data that the corporate have. So all data use is based on the individual consent, so you don't need to get another consent again. And now we have 6,000 plus users currently, and half of them are male and half of them are female. And about 2/3 of them are in their 40s to 60s. And when we want to pilot proof of concept study, we will call for the participants to enroll via this app. And I'll show the example of the POC that we have just finished last year. This was done to see if the elderly participating in this online exercise regimen were able to maintain physical capacity while staying at home in COVID-19 pandemic. And the exercise capacity was collected via IoT wristband, and the result was analyzed by academic institution. And this was successfully done, but what we can do next is, say if this startup wanted to get PMDA approval, we can support them by providing claims data and maybe outcome data, such as nursing care services being used or not. By combining these data from PHR service and also the other data set that we have on file, and combining it to the data that was collected from, for example, the wristband, we can provide evidence for the approval of PMDA. So by joining this consortium in Kobe, we are providing opportunities for testing new products and services for enterprises, and also a research opportunity for academic institutions. And if the innovative services are created from Kobe, we as the government can deliver that to citizens who volunteer to participate to those POCs and provided their data for social goods. And I think this cycle makes an ideal ecosystem for everybody. Okay, so to wrap up today's presentation, the market is growing in Japan to 2.5 billion. And what we need for the success is, I think, strong partnership and collaboration. Also, professional support regarding regulations. I think it will be explained later on this webinar by Azuma-san. And environment as a testbed and data infrastructure to add scientific evidence and opportunity for agile improvement for the digital health services is very important as well. And we got them all in one place. So please do consider Kobe as a first step to global expansion of your business. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mickey. Really appreciate your presentation. Really wonderful to have you present, in-depth information about the Japanese medical system and market, and certainly all of your comments around things for companies to be thinking about when entering the Japanese healthcare market. So thank you so much for your presentation. For the audience, I just want to say, again, thank you. Wonderful to see so many of you logging in from all over the world. Shout out to the people logging in from Kiev, Ukraine, Madrid, Spain, Berlin, Germany, Bucharest, Romania, and of course our neighbors to the north, Canada, and to the south, Mexico, and different locations all over the US. Certainly, as I mentioned before, one silver lining in this pandemic is the ways we are using technology to gather. So wonderful to have all of you here, and thank you for starting to put your questions in the Q&A box, and we will gather those and answer them at the end of the presentations. International participation is a very good segue to talking about the city of Kobe, since it's a very international city. So next, we are going to hear an introduction about the startup ecosystem and business support structures available in Kobe and Hyogo Prefecture from Mr. Masanori Nagamine, Director of the Kobe Trade Information Office here in Seattle. So even though Mr. Nagamine and I are both in Seattle physically, we are also in Kobe virtually. And I've had the pleasure to be working with Mr. Nagamine for several years. And with that, Mr. Nagamine, please tell us a little bit about some of the startup ecosystem and supports that companies can find in Kobe.
Yeah, thank you, Karin, for your kind introduction. I'm Masanori Nagamine, the director of KTIO, Kobe Trade Information Office, located in Seattle, and one of the hosts of today's webinar. We are happy to see so many of you here today. KTIO is a branch office of the city of Kobe, Japan, which is a sister city of Seattle. Our role is attracting US and global companies and startups to Kobe. Please let me introduce the Hyogo and Kobe startup ecosystem. The blue prefecture on the map is Hyogo Prefecture, and Kobe is a capital city of Hyogo. Kobe is one of the core cities in the Keihanshin region, including Osaka and Kyoto. You can travel the Keihanshin region within an hour by train. The Keihanshin region is Japan's second largest market after Tokyo. The GDP of Keihanshin is almost the same as Switzerland and larger than San Francisco Bay Area. The population of Keihanshin is the 10th largest in the world's megacity areas and larger than the New York area. However, the office rent is about 1/3 that of Tokyo. Kobe is a good city with good cost performance. And more than 70 global companies have their Japanese headquarters in Kobe, and several have chosen Kobe as the first city in Asia for the incubation center, R&D base, and training base. Kobe's main startup industries are life sciences, health tech, IT, and government tech. The Kobe-Hyogo ecosystem is supported by City of Kobe, Hyogo Prefecture, many research and support organizations, universities, and hospitals. The blue frame shows startup support in Kobe. KBIC, the Kobe Biomedical Innovation Cluster, is the largest life science hub in Japan. Mr. Azuma will share more after the panel. Startups around the world may be able to participate in Kobe's Accelerator and proof of concept programs. If you set up your business in Kobe, you can get startup visa support, various subsidies, and digital supports, including free office rent and consulting. City of Kobe launched 500 Kobe Accelerator in 2016 in partnership with 500 startups. This is the first program in Japan implemented by a municipal government in partnership with a global accelerator. 88 startups from around the world have participated in the past 5 years, and the total amount of fundraising has reached 110 million US dollars. We are planning to change 500 Kobe program in 2021 so more startups can participate. Please subscribe to our newsletter and follow our social media for the newest information. City of Kobe actively partners with companies. Through mutual partnerships, even overseas startups may perform POC in Kobe. For example, Telos, a San Francisco-based startup, was able to conduct POC of the elderly care device in Kobe through our mutual partner Docomo, Japan's largest mobile telecommunications company. By partnering with larger companies connected to City of Kobe, startups can gain important language support and access to POC opportunities in Japan. If you need a POC after partnering with a Japanese company, please suggest City of Kobe to your partner. The startup visa was created to provide short-term residential status while you establish your business in Japan. This makes it much easier to incorporate and eventually obtain the business manager visa. The startup visa is supported only by Kobe and 9 other cities. Please refer to our website blog for more details about the startup visa, business manager visa, and other requirements for setting up a business in Japan. Kobe provides many subsidies to overseas startups establishing a business in Kobe. Applicants may receive a maximum of 120,000 US dollars over 3 years, depending on successful application and examination for each subsidy. Applying startups must utilize advanced technology, have a business plan of 3 years or more that is expected to grow, and have a track record in the industry. Hyogo Prefecture, a sister state of Washington State, and City of Kobe have offices in Seattle, with staff including myself who support your business in Hyogo and Kobe. Due to language barriers, it is not easy to communicate directly with Japanese municipal governments and obtain English support information. However, we can support you. So please contact us and access information on our website. And finally, let me summarize my presentation. The Cabinet Office of Japan selected 4 regions in Japan as global startup cities last year. This table compares with those regions. Tokyo has the most advantage in terms of market size, but Kobe has the advantage in other aspects such as cost and subsidies. So when you set up a business in Japan, please consider Kobe. Please contact us if you plan to set up your office in Japan. Thank you very much for your attention.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Nagamine. Makes me want to go back and live in Kobe. So next, we're excited to start our panel discussion portion of the program. And it gives me pleasure to introduce our moderator for the panel. So Mr. Masashi Kiyomine will be moderating, and our 3 participants include Dr. Nick Hurd, who is co-founder and CEO of company iComi, Mr. Bobby Uyama, Senior Director, Frontier Business Development, Dai Nippon Sumitomo Pharma. And then Dr. Ryusuke Miki, our keynote speaker that you previously heard from the city of Kobe. So with that, let me introduce Mr. Kiyomine, and he will introduce our panelists and get us started. So Mr. Kiyomine is managing partner of Kicker Ventures, which is located in the San Francisco Bay Area. And he has over 15 years experience investing in early stage healthcare startups. Before he founded Kicker Ventures, he was the investment director at Mitsui & Company Global Investment, where he led the global life science investment team, and has a number of, I'm sure, interesting stories and pieces to all of the different boards he's served on and supporting the different startup companies. And I'll note that he also has a BA in engineering and Asian studies from Dartmouth College. So with that, Mr. Kiyomine, I hand it over to you. We're looking forward to the panel discussion.
Thank you, Karen. It's my true pleasure to be here. Super excited for this panel, and I hope everyone else is also. I don't need to talk about myself, but I see that a lot of the audiences, startups or also Japanese big people who are working for big Japanese companies, and I think this panel is a perfect for panelists can give a perfect advice on their real world experience and the real time experience that they're having in cracking the code of disrupting and innovating in the Japanese healthcare market, and also collaboration, creating a meaningful collaboration between the government, big company, and the startup. I'll say one thing about my analogy that I use when I talk about working with the Japanese companies or entering the Japanese market, is that for especially people working for startups, it's the Japanese companies and startups. They're all doing the businesses, but they're very different. I always use the analogy that Japanese companies or Japanese market is like sumo. And then U.S. startups or foreign startups are like playing basketball. So they're playing the same sports, but the rules are different, the customs are different, background is different, and the history is different. So it's really important to understand what those are in order to form the partnership that Miki-san emphasized as a critical component to getting into Japanese market. So with that said, let's have our panelists introduce themselves. Let's first go with Nick. He's the CEO of and co-founder of iComi. It's a Japanese startup creating a digital therapeutic solution for dementia. So Nick.
Okay, thanks very much, Masashi. So thanks for the introduction and the chance to be on this panel. So first of all, briefly my background. I'm originally from the UK, where I did my education and PhD in chemistry, and then I moved to do a postdoc in Switzerland and then in the States at Penn State. After that, I joined pharma, initially in SmithKline Beecham, as was in the UK. And then after a few years, I moved out to Japan to join Takeda Pharmaceuticals. Originally, it was supposed to be a short-term during my career in pharma, I started off as a bench chemist, a medicinal chemist, but I quickly became involved in technology over different areas of the drug discovery and drug development cycle. And this led me on to digital health, starting working on that about 6 years ago, looking at patient compliance and patient monitoring. And this led on to looking at digital for therapy, which created the seeds for the technology that was spun out as iComi from Takeda in 2018. So the reason we started ICOMI is because we wanted to look for a digital therapy solution for behavioral and psychological disorders in dementia, which is one of the biggest challenges for facing people doing dementia care. And so we developed a technology platform that was based on personalized multisensory cognitive stimulation that was tailored to the individual life story, needs, and preferences of the person with dementia. And the programs could be optimized based on response and our AI to promote verbal and non-verbal communication. So using our tool, carers and families can engage with people with dementia, and this can help facilitate care, reduce anxiety, and improve quality of life. And we're looking to develop this both as a clinical therapeutic application as well as a consumer application. Although our clinical work has obviously been put on hold, we're doing that in collaboration with Dainippon Sumitomo here in Japan, but we can't do clinical trials during COVID. And instead, we focused on developing a fully online application, which is now being used by families to keep in touch with their loved ones who are in lockdown care homes. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Nick. Next, let's have Bobby-san introduce himself. He's the Senior Director of a Frontier Business Office at Sumitomo Dainippon Pharma, and he's based in Boston.
Thank you, Kiyomiya-san. Hi, everyone. Just a brief introduction of my company, Sumitomo Dainippon Pharma, starting with the nice thank you note to Kobe City. This is the aerial view of the Port Island, so-called, and we have a footprint in this nice place to work on the research side of Regenerative Cell Medicine Center opened in 2014. And the reason why we were attracted of this particular place among Japanese region is that you have a cluster of all sorts of innovation. So maybe this is another snapshot to illustrate how easy you can access to all the important facilities as well as the stakeholders. So if you can look at Japan as a potential destination for your business, Kobe will be definitely one of the top criteria for you. If I shift the gear to explain what the Frontier Business Team is, this is one slide from our midterm business plan that is published in April 2019. And as you can see in the center of the green oval, the company would like to be the global specialized player in some of the modalities. And of course, we are pharmaceutical companies, and we will keep on strive to bring the new technology or new solution from the medicine side. But in addition, the company thought we can do more and we can do better if we can leverage some new idea or new technology. That's where Frontier Business is established. Try to find out the new solution for the better benefit of the patient and the caregivers. So that's why, in a nutshell, Frontier Business Team is working on from the Sumitomo Dainippon Pharma to find out and deliver the pioneering solution beyond the medication. And that's really broad mission to say. So first, we would like to focus considering our expertise. One is active aging solution, and the other is a mental health solution, simply because we have those expertise in R&D as well as commercial side. This is another way to explain or illustrate where the Frontier Business Team is focusing on. As you can see, the treatment side, we are relatively good at addressing from the drug side or medication side. But before the treatment or after the treatment, we still think there is an unmet needs existing. That's why we'd like to address those areas from bringing the new technologies such as great partner iComi. And the last, I'd like to close my introduction by this slide, a sense of purpose. Why DSP or Sumitomo Dainippon Pharma established the frontier business team in addition to the conventional pharmaceutical division. It is really the patient or caregivers we view, it should be the center of that thinking. And the frontier business, maybe not only frontier business, but the Sumitomo Dainippon Pharma would like to bring or make easier for patients and caregivers to have the more time to smile. Why? Because if we can do that, maybe we can increase the number of good people in the society that will turn into the great effect, so that this society itself will be just a little bit better place. That is the really ambitious goal for frontier business to contribute to the wide-ranging of well-being. In terms of myself, you can see my background if you have the account for LinkedIn, so I just can skip. And let me turn this over to you, Kiyomi-san.
Thanks, Bobby-san. We've had Miki-san present, so we'll skip, or we'll spare him from doing another self-introduction here. And let's get into the panel discussion. And hopefully we can have active dialogue going on. But I think no, we don't have too much time anyway. So I want to cover maybe two topics mainly. One is, how you guys see the Japanese market, the opportunities there and the challenges. Miki-san has covered have done great job covering the the background and the market is growing to $2.5 billion, and the regulatory landscape is changing, which is great. But as a people who are on the ground, really hitting the doing the business there, where the opportunities are. And the second is the topic of collaboration, how the foreign startups can enter Japanese market and how they should partner with Japanese companies. So maybe let's start with the first topic and where you see the opportunities in the Japanese market. And maybe we'll start with Bobby, but we can have a ongoing discussion, and anyone can chime in anytime.
Oh, thank you. So there should be a great variety of opportunity to get into the Japanese market in terms of the healthcare industry. But given the situation where we still in the COVID-19 impact, I would point out the two things. Number one, of course, the remote monitoring or remote telemedicine, because you are physically required to be separated between the patient and the providers. And that will require some technology, which I believe the US company is really good at, or track record. So that would be one of the area you can look into. And the other may be related to the remote monitoring is the objective sensing or objective monitoring, so that you as a provider can give the meaningful or personalized care as opposed to one of many or as the number of X, so that the prophylaxis care as well as the personalized follow-up, those type of technology may be a great stage if you are thinking about the Japanese market. That's my initial kickoff comment.
What about you, Nick? From startups perspective, where do you see the opportunities are?
In the backdrop of COVID, I think actually COVID's been a great accelerator for digital. So prior to COVID, certainly in the area we were with senior care, there's quite a big barrier to adopting digital technology. But I think, you know, the imperative to go remote has really changed mindsets with a lot of people. Not only healthcare professionals, but also families. I think they're more willing to try these approaches. So I think that's a very positive, and I think that'll stay. I think the aspect of being remote generally has been very helpful. I think in terms of where the opportunities, I think Miki-san, so Ryusuke has already said about prevention. I think that's common to every region of the world, and certainly in the developed world. But I think some of the aspects in Japan, particularly, it's very, the population is very segmented. So in the cities are very crowded and rural is very empty. And I think the challenges of rural care, how to deliver that efficiently with a very relatively low number of doctors, I think that's one of the big opportunities, which I think US technology is probably better set up than Japan. The infrastructure still is low, I think, but that means the opportunities are great. I think my area is senior care, so I'm very biased, I think, but I think focusing, I mean, apart from dementia, I think frailty is a real challenge in dementia, in senior care, and there's huge opportunities there. And loneliness, I think, and that loneliness goes across not just the senior group. I think the younger generation are also experiencing a lot of loneliness. And while it's, you know, it's debatable whether it's medical or not, I think that's a real challenge that's going to face the next 20 years in Japan.
Yeah, I mean, with the aging demographics, you know, it's definitely going to be a problem that needs to be solved, right? Yeah. Miki-san, any kind of opportunities you see from maybe doctor's perspective or someone working for the government?
I think there's an opportunities in telemedicine. Because of the COVID pandemic, people aren't actually going to the clinics and the hospitals, and there are some problems generated by that. So telemedicine would be a good area for the investment, I think.
Makes sense. Okay. Great. So yeah, seems like, you know, the telemedicine, the COVID, I think, you know, Japan has been kind of notorious for, you know, not really adopting technologies, especially in the business setting, but COVID really accelerated it. And, you know, hopefully that's, that's going to bring a good change to, you know, how the business is done in the healthcare space. Okay, so let's go to the second topic about, you know, the collaboration or the challenges of overseas companies coming into Japanese market. And, you know, maybe we can start with the, you know, the real collaboration that actually happened between iComi and Sumitomo Dai Nippon. And, you know, it's a pretty interesting partnership. You know, Sumitomo Dai Nippon is a pharma company. Nick's iComi is not, right? And so maybe we can ask them, you know, ask maybe Nick or Bobby, maybe Bobby first. You know, how did the collaboration start, and why did Sumitomo Dai Nippon decide to partner with iComi?
Sure. To the extent that Nick doesn't mind, I go first. I think if I use the one word summary, that's about the complementary synergy or the common shared value. And I will try my best to explain what that means. By starting off the background of the Sumitomo Dai Nippon Pharma before we had a great opportunity to meet with Nick and his team at iComi. So obviously, the Sumitomo Dai Nippon Pharma has been doing the drug or pharmaceutical business, one of which expertise area is dementia. And we knew peripheral symptoms of dementia is really a problem, which is not very well addressed through the pharmacological solution. And we are trying, and we are exploring, and we are hunting what we can do about that. In the course of that hunt, we came across ICOMI's great development work or project. I believe through one of the conferences in Japan related to the cognition theme or cognition topics. And as we gradually understand, ICOMI's approach is not directly go to and cure the symptom itself, but more like alleviate the depressive mood or the agitated mood, so that that will decrease the communication barrier or gap between the patient herself or himself and its caregivers, whether it's a family member or nursing care staff or providers. So that will result not only improving the quality of life of the patient, but also greatly alleviate or ease the burden by the caregivers. So that's the way we perceive the disease or symptom. It's not about I had a bad day or I had a bad time, but also there are people surrounding you as a patient. Therefore, not only specifically focus on the patient and get rid of the agony from her or from him, but also make it easier for somebody who really care the patient. And that's a kind of a human interaction or way of view or empathy. So that's one of the value Sumitomo Dainippon is really view as an important thing. And that brings to me the first comment, which is the complementary and the long-term collaboration.
So sounds like it's the skill set that the pharma company doesn't have that Nick's company had. That made sense. Maybe from Nick's perspective, what did you see in Dainippon Sumitomo or even Sompo that you have another partnership with?
Exactly like Bobby, I think from the beginning we realized we were on the same mindset, on the same journey. I think DSP had figured out that he wanted to go into digital therapy quite early on. And we from a pharma background, in fact, my previous company, Takeda, hadn't made that journey. They were still not really committed to digital therapy. So we kind of met at the right time. But I think another thing is that because we had a pharma background, we could figure out how to work together, how to test things together, very much data-based, same view on, understanding of clinical, the regulatory process. So it was kind of like we were working with other pharma colleagues, but because we're in a startup, we were able to take the risks that perhaps it's quite difficult to do in a larger organization. And to be fair, in a Japanese pharma company, it's relatively conservative. So, we could basically work together as one team, but we were the kind of the riskier end. And then we could rely on this sort of the infrastructure and support from Dainippon to take this forward. So I think as soon as we started working with Dainippon, the project really accelerated compared to doing it internally in, for example, in Takeda.
So it sounds like really just having the same vision or same passion, bringing different skill sets into the same project.
Perhaps from a pharma perspective, I think they didn't have to worry about, say, educating a startup to get to set shared goals. I think we were already on the program, and we could also maybe synergistically, we could say, well, you don't have to do it this way, we can do it another way. We could educate, from being on the outside, we could educate pharma as well. So I think that's been quite a productive way to go forward.
Great. So that sounds great. Unfortunately, we are almost out of time. But maybe we can get maybe one sentence from each panelist on advice on the audience here, in regards to how to partner with Japanese companies or entering Japanese market. Whatever advice you can give, or even to fellow Japanese companies who are looking to work with startups. Let's start with Nick, since you're on my screen first.
I think my best advice is be patient. It takes time and develop your relationships. I think through the relationships, they'll open a lot of doors and you develop very strong partnerships. So yeah, be patient.
Uyama-san, Bobby?
Yes, I totally agree with you. We really put the patient in the center, not only the collaboration, but also try to achieve the unmet needs. In addition to that, maybe there are so many differences between Japanese culture or Japanese corporation and the US mindset. So if you can understand the other side of the table through the discussion, you will be in the better position to present yourself or present your idea so that the Japanese side of the counterpart can help you to bring that idea or bring that story up to the chain of the government body internally at the Japanese company. So that will take time. Back to your point, and it really needs the patience. But the more you listen to the other side of the table, the more you can understand what they are thinking and how they view, so that I believe that will increase the chances of success of your journey in Japan.
So respecting the partners.
Mm-hmm.
Miki-san, last words.
Yes, all right, I'll try to make it quick. I think the partnership is the most important thing when you think about the business success. So try to find a reliable partner with enough experience and knowledge in the industry. So you can refer to the link shared in the chat, and also the government URL that I have introduced in the slide, which is Medical Innovation Support Office or Healthcare Innovation Hub. You can refer to those websites and gather information regarding partnerships and stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for all the panelists. The last comment I'm seeing here is that this discussion is very impressive and informative. So good job, guys. And I think all of us are on LinkedIn. So if any of the audience need to reach out to us, you can do so via LinkedIn or whatever means you want to. So thank you. And back to you, Karen.
Oh my goodness, what an amazing discussion. But luckily, we're bringing you back for the Q&A after we just hear one more presentation. So you all can get a sip of water and then be ready. The chat has been blowing up with lots of questions. So I will come back to be asking all four of you some different follow-up questions. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Kinomine, for your moderation. Fascinating discussion. And I can tell definitely the expertise of the audience is also very high because the questions are very detailed and starting to be above my pay grade, but we'll see what we could do. So panelists, go ahead and turn off your cameras, and I'm going to introduce the next two speakers for this next section. So two organizations, JETRO in San Francisco, and also the Kobe Biomedical Innovation Cluster in Kobe. The speakers are going to introduce some information regarding their support for companies. So first I will do a brief introduction of our speaker from JETRO. So Mr. Takanori Yamashita, welcome. You are currently the Chief Executive Director for JETRO in San Francisco. And I see from your bio, again, we have a link to all the bios in the chat, but you're on assignment from the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. It looks like you've previously been involved in as part of a support team for residents affected by nuclear incidents from the Cabinet Office in Tokyo. So I'm sure you have some fascinating stories from all of your work with Fukushima, and I know we're coming up on the anniversary date. There's several anniversary remembrance events that are being planned locally here in the Seattle area. And that now you're helping companies expand North American expansion for Japanese startups and innovation and business development. So please go ahead and introduce a little bit about JETRO San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen, for having introduced me to the audience. Hello, everyone. My name is Tak Yamashita, CEO of JETRO San Francisco. I've been involved in supporting business of private companies, both at JETRO and the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry for over 30 years. I'm here today to give you a brief overview of how the JETRO can support American startups to expand businesses into the Japanese market. Let me first show you how actively Japanese companies are seeking for American startups as business partners or for investment purposes. This graph represents that Japan tops the number of corporate innovation presence in Silicon Valley. Most of the Japanese outposts cover not only Silicon Valley, but other areas across the US, including Seattle and the Pacific Northwest. Please note that the number of the US innovation outposts only includes that of companies with headquarters outside of Bay Area. From 2016, Japan is the #1 foreign deal makers. Japan is the most prolific country in terms of the number of deals and amount. We JETRO are offering business matching program to startups in North America. This is a free service that gives startups direct access to about 300 leading Japanese corporates. Startups submit their business proposal to JETRO, who shares it with Japanese companies actively seeking investment and partnerships with North American businesses. Once a Japanese company expresses interest in a proposal, JETRO arranges an introductory meeting between both parties. About 30 success stories are created every year, which includes POC agreement, value-added reseller agreement, distributor agreement, and direct investment into Japan. We are targeting a wide range of technologies for this program. JETRO has other support menu when American startups want to establish a branch in Japan. We give information on Japanese market, regulation, or incentive programs. We provide consultation services such as corporate registration, visa, tax and labor, and introduce to service providers like certified legal specialists, tax accountants, and banks. We also offer startups furnished office spaces in Tokyo. This is free of charge for the first 50 business days. Here's our attraction. JETRO San Francisco is leading this project with about 20% contribution of JETRO's overall success story. This is one of the success stories. Defined Crowd is a Seattle-based startup and provides customers training data for machine learning, which is normally very time-consuming and costly. This startup has a lot of experienced members and provides high-quality training data in a short term. JETRO provided consultation on visa, tax, and labor matters, and referred a certified legal specialist for company registration. It established the Tokyo branch in February 2018. This is another success story. Standard Cognition provides an AI platform like Amazon Go. JETRO provided information like access to the market, regulation, and incentives, incorporation service, and temporary office spaces. This company is collaborating with a major drugstore in Sendai, Miyagi, and doing verification tests. JETRO San Francisco is planning a webinar on healthcare in June or July. Japanese companies that are ready to invest in or partner with American startups will make pitches. If you are interested, please contact me at LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Yamashita, Mr. Yamashita. Appreciate that update and appreciate you joining us from San Francisco today. So next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Azuma. Mr. Azuma is Senior Coordinator for the Foundation of Biomedical Research and Innovation at Kobe. And I take it your office is maybe out at Port Island. So I have been there and toured a bunch of those facilities and space. So Mr. Azuma has been responsible for international medical device projects from that foundation in Kobe since 2018 and has a long background in medical device manufacturing, working with Europe and with China. And so now uses all of that experience to really have global bridge building among industry, academia, government, medical sectors, lots of different partners. So Mr. Azuma, please tell us a little bit about the foundation and supports for startups.
Thank you, Ms. Black. Hello, everybody. I'm Masa Azuma, Senior Coordinator at the Foundation for Biomedical Research and Innovation, FBRI. One of its roles is to support members of Kobe Biomedical Innovation Cluster. I'm very pleased to have opportunity to introduce you about Kobe Biomedical Innovation Cluster, KBIC. Kobe Biomedical Innovation Cluster is Japan's first biomedical hub since 1998. KBIC has three focuses in medical devices, drugs, and regenerative medicines. KBIC forms ecosystem among research institutions, hospitals, and companies in the small area of 1 square mile. This style is still unique in Japan. Along with 23 years history, we have now 370 members, including companies of medical devices, pharmaceuticals, and regenerative medicine. And also we have some remote satellite campus of universities, as well as hospitals, and also peripheral supporting companies. KBIC is providing rental offices, incubation facilities, and on top of that, KBIC provides valuable programs for KBIC members, such as to support commercialization, support for human resource recruitment, networking, joint participation in exhibitions, and we offer some subsidies and grants as well. For more in details, please visit the website indicated here. This shows an example of the program which is a platform to support medtech commercialization. In KBIC, coordinator works sometimes as an accelerator, sometimes as an advisor, and to support from the aspect of clinical value, business design, and regulatory clearance. Upon necessity, we also utilize external advisors, external professionals or organizations under our broad network. 52 products were launched with our support until today. We are very proud of having 22 coordinators with various professional background to support members. There is also a branch office of PMDA, a Japanese regulatory agency, in our office. This is another example of supporting program of FERI as an international partner under the EU program for the European company to make a feasibility study of market entry in Japan. FBRI has also worked as a mentor under German acceleration program to support German startups to enter into Japanese market. So therefore, we are very skillful and we have know-how to support non-Japanese company to enter into Japanese market. So finally, KBIC, together with FBRI, offers ideal environment to welcome you as a member of KBIC and is ready to support your activity. Otherwise, looking forward to finding your partners. Please contact me to indicated email address for any of your interest. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much. And I love your view from up on Mount Roko. It looks awesome. May we all soon travel again and get to go visit other places in person. Thank you so much, Mr. Azuma.
Thank you.
So next, we get all of our speakers and panelists back and launch into the Q&A, question and answer part of our program. And we have so many questions. Thank you so much for all of your engagement. So I will first ask two general questions. So if my speakers can go ahead and put their cameras back on. So we will gather the folks together here. And I know there's two sort of general questions about the overall healthcare environment that come in from attendee Kenshiro Yamashita. So number one, sort of to all of you, Dr. Miki and others, and certainly I may direct one question to one of you, but others that have a thought, please chime in with an answer as well. So first, sort of two questions about overall healthcare environment in Japan. Number one, what is preventing the Japanese healthcare institutions from digitalizing? Is it a lack of IT infrastructure or just mere sort of old-fashioned norm? So the first question is about digitalization. And then the second question is around the attendee writes, I heard that healthcare institutions in Japan are in a rivalry state and don't really share information with each other. Is that true? And are there some government regulations or movements in the market that are maybe changing that? So first question about digitalization, second about sort of information sharing and collaboration. So I don't know if that's Dr. Mickey first or anyone else who can want to take that one.
Okay, I'll try to answer the question. First, about the digitalization in the clinic and hospital settings. I think the digitalization of the medical records are being done in most of the cases. I would assume it's electronic medical records are introduced in, are used in most of the clinics and hospitals, roughly about 70% or 60%, somewhere around that range. So digitalization is done, but the data usage is not done at all. So data sharing is one of the big issue for the digital health, for promoting digital health. And what's prohibiting that from happening is, I think, we have of course, we have a law regarding the personal information. So the law is prohibiting hospitals and clinics to share the information they have to the third parties. And also another issue is that the interoperability is not guaranteed. So they got the data, but they can't transfer it to some other third parties because of the data formats and data set they have are all different. There's no standard of the medical records. So that's another issue. I hope that answered that questions.
Sure, thank you. Any other thoughts on the digitization, or if not, maybe moving on to the collaboration question in terms of healthcare institutions sort of not willing to share information, anything about government regulations or market movement that's changing that, if that is indeed true? Great. Nickel chime in on that one. Thank you.
I think as Miki-san says, you know, this regulations are there, but I think that they're very unclear and people are very unfamiliar with them. So I think people tend to be cautious. So I think they are on the side of safety. So they're unwilling to share information freely until it's really procedures are established. So I think once precedents are there, it will go very, very quickly. But I think it's establishing those first precedents because I think there's a very high awareness of privacy and security within the healthcare profession in Japan, particularly privacy, I think, is a big issue that may be different from the US, where people are a little bit more relaxed about privacy when it doesn't pertain directly to medical information. So, but it's coming. I think it's definitely something that's going to come in the next 5 years.
Great, thank you. So next, Dr. Mickey, I want to ask you, there were 3 questions related to PMDA. So one question was around sort of what are the requirements and how long does it take to get PMDA certified or approved? And also a second question around does a company need clinical data in the Japanese market, or would it be possible to use data from other markets to get initial approval followed by, you know, like a post-market study in Japan?
Okay, that's very difficult questions. I to be honest, I don't have a deep knowledge about that. But
fair enough.
Okay, so I kind of looked up in the internet to see how long did it take for the therapeutic app that I introduced took to get approved. So they started the clinical trial in 2017 and they got approved on 2020, so that makes it 3 years, and I'm pretty sure that they've been preparing it for it, so that would add maybe 1 or 2 years. So I would say like 3 to 5 years for approval. I mean, for now, I think they're trying to speed up the process of review process. So I'm hoping that it would be easier in the near future. But for now, I would say somewhere around like 3. And then the next question about the using data that were collected in the clinical trial done in the foreign setting. Could it be applied to the, could it be used for the approval in Japanese market? I don't know. I don't want to like mislead or give you wrong information. So maybe some other panelists know about this. Does anyone know about this?
And it's okay if we just go, we don't know the answer to this one. That's okay. We've got a lot of other really good questions too, so we can launch into that. So maybe I'll turn to a question to address to Mr. Kiyomine and then all of our panelists. Sort of from all of your viewpoint, what are the unique skill sets or approaches that foreign startups bring to the table in Japan that are not necessarily available in Japan right now? So what are some of the unique things that a foreign startup brings? Is it digital experience? Is it out of the box thinking? Like, what do you see the foreign startups bringing?
Sure. I think the biggest value that foreign or U.S. startups bring is that just the fact that US startups have been working on it for a longer time than Japanese startups. So, I mean, digital health, the word digital health, really started in 2012 or so. So we've been working on it for over 10 years now. The digital health in Japan, I think, really got it going in the past, 4 or 5 years, really. So that just the fact that, we've been working on it. We have more experience. We have more knowledge. So we understand, or I'm using word we because I'm based here, but, we understand better, about what business model potentially works, how pharmas and tech companies can collaborate, what kind of role payers play in this in this space, and what kind of evidence you need to generate. So I think that's a knowledge that a lot of Japanese startups don't have, and that is valuable for Japanese big companies, especially if they're if they're already a global company and have presence in the US or other countries outside of Japan and need to either grow their market share or maintain their lead in the space.
Great, thank you. Do any of our other speakers want to chime in there as well? Or if not, then I'll move to the next question. So another attendee writes, I agree telemedicine and remote monitoring is an attractive market, but given the low reimbursement rate, it's very difficult to make a meaningful business out of that reimbursement. What do you think about that? And any ideas or suggestions for foreign companies to explore?
That's a very difficult one because it hasn't really established in Japan yet. It's still in its infancy. So, but I would think, I mean, it's not particularly an informed opinion, but if something works, it'll get a fair hearing. And I think the problem with some of these telemedicine ones is that their impact is relatively hard to measure and evaluate. Mm-hmm. So I think if you've got something that's got a good track record and evidence, then you've got a much better chance. But for sure, yeah, I think the models are still to be worked out. As far as I know, just as much in the States as well. It's still an issue there.
Yeah.
I think the important perspective. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bobby.
Can I speak now?
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead, Dr.
Sorry,
Sorry,
yeah,
No,
sorry.
it's all right. I think the important perspective is you need to measure the outcome of the telemedicine so that you get the better reimbursement rate on the every 2-year health technology assessment. So you need data to show that there is a value in the telemedicine, so you get a better deal. And also, I think there's an opportunity surrounding the services of telemedicine, such as like maybe delivering drugs to the household, or I don't know, the digital prescription services or something like that. So you can maybe consider that as a growing field, or you can maybe make money out of that.
Yeah.
If I may chime in, maybe related to the previous question, what's the unique feature that the US startup company may have related also to the telemedicine issue is that maybe US company have a faster and flexible environment to test their technology out in the real world as opposed to Japanese situation. Therefore, if you have to the point of Miki Sensei's great advice, to the point you have the good data or good backup material, then that will be a great resources for you that is really unique compared to the Japanese startup or Japanese company. I don't know if that is some sort of response or answer to that question, but that's what I thought.
Wonderful. Thank you, Yama-san. Well, the bad news is, guys, that we are out of time. So the good news is there's been amazing interactive participation with all of our attendees today and so many questions. So certainly all our panelists get a chance to look at those as well. I know there's definitely some chatting around, hey, can we get together for another roundtable or somehow be interactive? Certainly, there'll be follow-up emails coming out with a recording to this webinar and links to the different organizations. As our speakers have mentioned, they're all on LinkedIn, so you can try to find folks and reach out that way. So we definitely feel like this has been a wonderful opportunity to collaborate and start talking with each other, and look forward to more connections. So let me just thank all of our speakers and panelists today. So big thank you to everyone. Really robust discussion. It was certainly my pleasure to be with you all today. So with that, let me just do a few closing pieces. We hope everyone has felt that today's presentation was interesting and beneficial as you think about expanding your digital health business into Japan. Big thanks to our organizers, Kobe Trade Information Office and the Hyogo Business and Cultural Center. Definitely a warm thank you again to all of the supporting organizations. You can see their names on the slides: Consulate General of Japan in Seattle, Innovation Finders Capital, Japan America Society of the State of Washington, JETRO San Francisco, Prosper Portland, and the Washington State Department of Commerce. So yay, thank you everyone. After you leave our Zoom webinar today, you will receive an email with a link to a post-webinar survey. We thank you in advance for filling that out and taking a few minutes to offer feedback to the organizers. We really appreciate that. And with that, thank you again so much and have a wonderful rest of your day. whatever time zone you are currently in. And I think we spanned the entire globe today. So again, thank you to all of our speakers and panelists and all of our attendees. So thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye now.